I'd like to welcome our next partner, Freshworks, to this session. Mr. Sandeep John will be giving us his keynote presentation on the new CX mandate customer services strategy for 2021. Sandeep currently heads field marketing for India and Southeast Asia at Freshworks. Prior to this, he led campaign initiatives across the UK, Middle East, and Africa, and also has been instrumental in setting up the sales development function at Freshworks. So, Mr. John, over to you. You have the next 15 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Nisha. Thanks for that, and hope all of you can hear me. So we've also got the chat window, so if any of you would like to ask questions during the course of this, for the next 15 minutes, feel free to drop in on the chat as well. I've got a few questions, poll questions as well. So I know there's quite a few of you attending right now. So I'd love for you to participate, and I'm going to make it very easy for you in terms of the questions. So you'll have options of A, B, C, and D. So please do that as well. So just give me 1 second while I quickly share my screen, because I've got a small deck to share with all of you. I'm hoping all of you can see my deck now as I present.
Yes, sir. It's up on screen.
Thanks, Nisha. Great. So why don't we get started? So I think just at the back of all of this, and I've also had the opportunity to catch the previous session as well. I think a lot of talk around how omni-channel and how digitization has really taken the forefront of what's happened in the world today. And literally, I've come across a few roundtable discussions where we're talking to many people and many CIOs and CTOs of organizations. What they've told us is literally saying that you've had like almost 100 years of experience in those roundtable sessions, but nobody could predict really what happened in 2020. And literally, it has taken a pandemic to get most companies to accelerate their whole digital transformation journey. Right. So what do we do at Freshworks? So I think what I'm going to do to the course of this is, and of course, everyone who's attending this session today will get a copy of this report that I'm talking about. It's something called the new CX mandate report. We did it across the globe. And so what I'm going to do is, through the course of this next 15 minutes, is walk you through some of the very interesting insights. Some of this might be quite obvious to you, but some of it could be quite interesting to see. And really, I think the big takeaways from this particular presentation is to understand what you as an organization can do. How can you improve your CX, given that we know everything that's happened in 2020? Essentially, that's kind of the flow that you're going to see today. Right. So before I begin, so my name is Sandeep, and like Nisha introduced, I take care of field marketing for the India and Southeast Asia markets right now at Freshworks. Let's get into it. For those who don't know who Freshworks is, so we're a company that was founded in 2010. We're a company that's accelerated growth over the last few years, more than 3,500 odd employees spread across the world today. Most of us are kind of working in a hybrid atmosphere, and as you would guess right now, I'm sitting right now in my office because I had the opportunity of the offices opened up for people to come in and walk in as well. So we've got offices all across the globe and several customers across the globe as well. Now, a bit about who we are and what do we do as an organization. So essentially, we're in the business of customer engagement. So we've got a suite of products that help in better customer engagement. We also look at our product suite also has products that help with acquiring customers and keeping customers for life. We are the only company, or at least one of our products called Freshdesk, is named as a visionary in Gartner's quadrant as well. So do look us up. If you'd like to know a little bit more about what Freshworks does as an organization, do go to freshworks.com and have a look as well. So whilst we are a global company, we are a company that started out of Chennai, and I'm sitting in our Chennai office here in India. We have kind of branched off, and we've got offices, as I mentioned, all across the globe. And I just quickly wanted to highlight some of our customers who we work for in India as well on this particular slide. Great. So let me talk about what I'm going to try and cover during the course of this session. First of all, I'd like to let's look at what the state of customer service was in 2020. And here's where I'm going to have a little bit of interaction from all of you as well. The second bit is we're going to look at a little bit of regional insights. So we're going to try to understand what does all of this mean as far as the APAC market is concerned. So when I say APAC here, I mean literally covering India, Southeast Asia, and the ANZ regions as well. Also, what are the big takeaways for all of us before we go? And of course, I'll also open up for Q&A, but then we don't need to wait for the Q&A session right at the end. Feel free to drop in your questions through the chat window through the course of this session, and I'll be happy to take them right at the end. Now, to begin, I think we're going to start off with a quick poll question. This one's for all of you, and I think to make life easier, I know you have the access to the chat window, so feel free to drop in your options, either A, B, C, or D. So the question is, which of the following was true regarding the state of customer service in 2020? So if you're a CX leader or you're part of a CX team, irrespective of which side of the organization you work in, what did you see? So option A is customer expectations have increased. Option B is customer service budgets have increased significantly. Option three is customer service leaders have really embraced this whole work from home culture, or is it all the four? So I'd like to see if I can see some of the chat options. So if you are on the chat window, feel free to drop. I think there are a few answers coming in. So somebody said customer expectations have increased. So there are four options. Feel free to choose which option. If you'd like, you can just drop in either A, B, C, or D. I can see a few folks selecting D as an option. Wait, I'll just keep this up for a couple of seconds more because I'd like to comment. Okay, that's wonderful. I think a lot of people are choosing D, which is interesting. Okay, I think I'll move on from here on in. I think the good thing to note about this is the fact that it is very much true. I think all these three options that we put out here, the four options in fact, but the three key points being customer expectations have increased, customer service budgets have also increased significantly because of what we've seen in the pandemic. And number three is customer service leaders have embraced work from home. Now, what I'm going to bring out is what does this actual report tell us though? So the report tells us this. Now, it says very clearly, as all of you have mentioned, customer expectations have increased. Now, there's a very interesting point that's going on here. So the fact that most people have now moved into this whole digital first world, the expectations of getting quicker responses, irrespective of the kind of channel that you are reaching out to, let's say a company, customer expectations have naturally gone up. There's also a very interesting fact around the customer expectations increased. For example, certain industries, for example, if you're in the finance sector, if you are, let's say, a fintech organization as well, and you're dealing with payment transactions, literally, customers almost have no sense of, in a sense that they'd like responses to come as quickly as possible. So there is some level of differentiation between the industry itself in terms of the expectations, but it is pretty high. The second bit is around 67% talk about how budgets have increased as well. So there has very clearly been an increase in budget because most customer service leaders have understood the need to invest in some form of technology or the other to really help them in this process. And I'll talk a little bit about what kinds of technology that people are actually investing in a little bit later on. The third bit is also CX leaders have really understood that they need to sort of embrace, and all of us are seeing it right now, right? Either people, and I saw the previous session as well, few of you were working from your homes. Most of you probably attending today are either working from your home or working in an office and have this kind of either complete remote environment or some kind of a hybrid environment, again, depending on the kind of industry that maybe requires that level of face time. For example, manufacturing, there have been enough folks actually working in the plant. Otherwise, working remotely in a manufacturing setup is going to be extremely difficult. But that being said, it's very clear that almost 68% of customer service leaders feel the need to create some kind of remote or even hybrid environment. Now let's move to the next bit. So the interesting point that I want to call out here, and I just want you to have sort of draw your eyes towards the first two things here, right? So whilst customer expectations were on the high, and you can see around 70% in the overall scheme of things, customer empathy was also high. Now, this is, if you think about it, and customer churn was expected. I think this is also relevant to certain kinds of industries. For example, industries like travel and tourism took a big hit because travel did not happen as much. So it is important to look at that as well. So customer expectations were on the high. Customer empathy was also on the high. It's borderline contradictory because if you think about it, whilst customers had extremely high expectations, their empathy levels to some extent were also high. So people understood that folks were working from home. But like I mentioned earlier, if you were dealing with the finance sector and dealing with things like money, you weren't really patient about the kind of responses that you were getting, right? The other thing to also look at is as certain things in expectations change. So I'm also drawing a comparison in terms of globally what that looks like. So fairly similar in terms of most of the geos of what they're looking at in terms of customer expectations. Now, one of the other bits I want to quickly call out is in terms of what the support volumes look like, right? So the traditional means of people reaching out phone, and there's also conversation in the previous segment about IVR and how that's going to continue to exist. There was a greater transcendence of channels like live chat, messaging being one of the key drivers for people, because now most people, you had this entire set of a generation of folk who are now using their mobile apps to try and order groceries, who typically would walk into stores. Like for example, my mother, who's like a fairly older person, started using the app to download a bunch of things as well. So this is almost a new sense of users into the system, and they suddenly started becoming a lot more comfortable with live chat, with messaging, and things like that. So very clearly, that saw a high growth rate as well. But what are the bigger challenges that faced, right? So very clearly, number one was adapting to a change in the channel mix. From traditional people receiving a lot of calls on the phone, a lot of companies realized that the customers themselves were trying to shift their channel. So the conversation earlier also was about how omnichannel, whilst omnichannel is important, it is important for you to know where your customers are to build that whole customer journey out as well. So one is the adapting nature of the channels as well. Two is also to make process changes within the technology platforms to wherever one can enable. And I think the three bigger point here is the fact is having some kind of strong knowledge management system as well. At the end of the day, a lot of the times you want customers to be able to reach out and solve problems on their own through where you're trying to deflect queries as much as you possibly can to create FAQs and things like that on your system as well. So three big areas that potentially helped folks. And I mentioned this earlier as well, customer service budget increase. In fact, in the APAC region overall, there was a significant, almost 11% increase as compared to what the globe was also doing. Right? There was a decrease in staffing, and this is very much in effect of what initially, and this is also, just mind you, this was taken at the what happened in 2020, whilst a lot of companies have resumed hiring post the latter half of the year. Initially, it was a bit of difficult, so there was a lot of challenges with regards to staffing. So I think customer service leaders did see a decrease in staffing during the early parts of the year. Great. So why don't I cover a little bit about the tools as well. I did mention earlier on that there were quite a few investments around tools and customer service as the budgets increased for customer service leaders. What happened there? So a few options here. Again, one other poll question. I'd like to see what kind of responses you have. Again, feel free to drop your responses on the chat. So what are the critical tools that really helped you during this crisis? Option A being live chat and messaging. Option B being workforce management, collaboration tools, self-service portal, or internal knowledge management system. I have my personal favorite, but I'd like to hear from you. I'm going to go back to the chat window and quickly see how many folks have got as well. So feel free. I can see a few folks have said live chat and messaging as being one of the options. So I'd like to know from all of you. Feel free to drop your responses on the chat. Which critical tools have helped you most during this crisis? Is it live chat and messaging? Is it workforce management, collaboration tools, self-service portal, or internal knowledge management system? Keep this up for a couple of seconds. So I think few folk have actually come back and said it's predominantly around the live chat and messaging. For me, whilst I think live chat and messaging has almost been a day-to-day for me in my regular work, even pre-pandemic days, I think one of the big lifesavers for me has been literally the use of collaboration tools, the ability to be able to reach out to your internal departments. For example, if I have a problem with my laptop, how do I get in touch with my IT team to solve for that? So we have an internal tool called Freshworks that essentially helps with that. But things like that have really sort of helped, made my life as an employee, especially working a lot from home, that's really helped me. But what is the actual the results of the poll? So coincidentally, a good part of it, so the top 5 critical tools, and that's what we wanted to put up on the board as well. Live chat and messaging being key, workforce management, of course, being very important, collaboration tools, self-service portals, and internal knowledge management systems. In fact, very clearly, 44% of customer service leaders worldwide said that live chat and messaging literally were critical for them to maintain service levels. So we already know that customer expectations were on the high, but really a lot of investment went around live chat, went around across the web, mobile messaging, making sure there was this consistent experience across not just that channel, but all other channels as well. So greater investments happened in that line. Great. I know we're a bit short on time in general, but I'll just try to quickly cover a couple of points as well before I close. I think one of the big things, and by the way, it just happened that 72% seem to be the common across the three things I'm going to talk about right now. Customer service leaders really understood that investing in remote tech, any tech that can help employees work better remotely, was really the future. It was really about the way to go forward, even 2021 onwards, literally, right? So one, of course, being the fact that investing in tech that can help with self-service. Self-service, as I mentioned earlier on, is nothing but helping customers resolve queries on their own, whether it's investing in things like bots, for example, that can help solve for that, number one. Two is investing in customer service platforms, be it Freshworks or any other company as well, that can really help them drive greater engagement. And three, of course, looking at things like AI and chatbots and automations within their tool as well, essentially making life easier for their agents and thereby, of course, making life easier for customers on the other end as well. Cool. So the last bit, I think, from the three key takeaways that I would mention in this is, of course, we literally 2021 is going to be literally about looking at the new work from home norm. Like literally, is this going to be a completely remote? A lot of companies, a lot of tech companies have also decided to go completely remote, or is it going to be some kind of a hybrid world, given whatever we know of the world today? Two, there is going to be a significant rise in support requests as we progress as well. As I mentioned, now there is a newer generation of folks starting to use mobile apps, starting to interact via chat and whatnot. So the support requests are going to increase. In fact, things like telephone calling, for example, will probably be restricted to almost specialized services. For example, IVR will take care of the basic requests, and then the agent on the other end will try to solve for complex queries. Things like chat, for example, will take a lot more precedence. And I think the third part, and I think nothing much that doesn't cover a bit of the survey as well. Whilst everyone is going through working from home and whatnot, I think one of the big things companies should look at is agents are also generally stressed, overworked in terms of being able to handle multiple queries at the same time. It's important for organizations to invest in some kind of programs to look after their people. Essentially, if you take care of your agents, they're going to take care of your customers. So investing in the right kind of tech and investing in your people as well to ensure that they have the right kind of physical and mental well-being that can truly help them. All right.
Sandeep, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, Nisha, I'm on point. Don't worry. Yep.
All right. So we're going
And
to
bang on. Yeah.
continue to the end, in the interest of time because we've overrun, if that's
Yeah.
okay with you.
So we're done. I'll just quickly summarize just one line. So I think thanks Nisha for that. I think all I wanted to say at the end of the day. So by the way, so if anyone would like a copy of the CX mandate report, all of you who are attending will get a copy of that report as well. Do we have time for Q&A? And I think with that, I'd like to thank anyone. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, feel free to email me or connect with me on LinkedIn. But Nisha, do we have time for Q&A or should we just take that offline?
We'll definitely address it at the end of the session, Sandeep, if that's okay. And,
Yeah.
if we don't, then we can always write back and we
I
have questions, trails here. So, yeah, like Sandeep said, we'd be happy to share your report and read it as well and send it to the audience. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks.